Sean Dietrich, aka Sean of the South, a white working class man from Missouri and later Florida, grew up being heavily shaped by the economic decline in the South and his father's suicide. Dietrich struggled with his emotional development as he struggles with self-worth and his masculine identity. However, through reflection and deep connections, he reshapes his worldview and effectively unpacked his identity in the shape of his life and built a lovely marriage with his wife Jamie. Sean's father struggled with unemployment, which contributed to his depressive state and alcohol abuse, leading to the ultimate decision to end his life. 12-year-old Sean, at a heavy loss with his father's abrupt suicide, experiences immense trauma and further descends into economic hardship. Dietrich displays resilience by returning to school and reflecting on the situation and his circumstances, which allows him to further grow his personal traits, of which were greatly influenced by his close bond with his brother through the shared loss, and similarly his mother. Though deeply religious, she was a hard-working woman and acted as an emotional anchor for the family. Due to his mother's religious values, church members and other community figures played large roles in guiding Dietrich and offering support as well. Applying Bronfenbrenner's ecological systems analysis model to Dietrich's memoir, we see how social and systemic influences shape his opportunity and access to self-enrichment in the wake of his father's suicide. From the individual level, Dietrich's personality of being quiet, attentive, and empathetic is shaped by and shapes his response to trauma. Storytelling, whether music or literature, becomes means of coping in order for him to healthily process his grief and search for purpose. These traits allow him to navigate obstacles while maintaining self-instilled hope, relating to family resilience theories, which underline the benefits of familial bonds and coping strategies that support the functioning of families in the face of trauma. The microsystem focuses on his immediate environment, meaning his family, school peers and teachers, the church, and his neighborhood. His family dynamic shifted, now relying on his mother as the caregiver and breadwinner due to the partial loss of household income. In turn, he and his brother took on more responsibilities as well through working and reintegrating into school, which deepened their bond as brothers through the shared expectations and requirements to survive as a family. The disruption of his father's absence impacted every role and relationship in the microsystem, relating to the lecture discussion about family structures and the distribution of roles. Belonging and acceptance contribute to quote-unquote diminished distress and enhanced well-being within a community of like-minded caring others, which likely explains his connections outside of his family. Church groups were a place of belonging for Dietrich, as storytelling circles reinforced his ability to be heard and create connections, as well as teachers that encouraged his recognized abilities, displaying acceptance. As for the interactions between these microsystems, Dietrich is positively impacted by teachers and church leaders by valuing his writing and depthful perspective. However, this does not erase stigmatization of non-traditional gender roles, and that the school system often separates itself from home life, displaying mismatched expectations and limits the growth of disadvantaged students. This underlines how equity policies should continue to be integrated in schools. Harvard covers this topic in their video titled The Education Gap, the root of inequality, arguing that inequality is perpetuated within the education institution systematically, which is why integration of protective factors like built community, opportunities, resources like NSLP, high academic standards, and high belief in students for growing and learning skills, and the promotion of student leadership create effective schools. On that note, the exosystemic structures that indirectly affect him and his family lie within capitalistic economic policies, which contribute to rural job loss in manufacturing and agriculture, which limited the family's economic growth and was a main influence for his father's suicide in the first place. Housing instability is a huge issue in America and can quote-unquote seriously jeopardize children's performance and success in school, which typically do long-term harm. So it was great that Dietrich was able to utilize his teachers and education, as that is not always a given. These systemic structural biases amplify family stress and limit their economic and social mobility. Through the macro system, we see the stigmatization of mental health struggles for men, framing emotion as weakness in Southern culture. Moreover, rural Southern families that are working class are typically seen as uneducated, which can contribute to the education gap as discussed previously. For Dietrich, storytelling traditions provided him with strength-based narratives about perseverance and allowed him to dismantle some of the gendered expectations that constricted him. Dominant culture is very exclusive in a way that further perpetuates acceptance of oppression by the oppressed, but subcultural narratives like faith promoted resilience for him. As for my personal reflection in my life, I faced economic struggles and continue to do so. However, I am from a multicultural household, making economic barriers more complex through racial and gendered social and systemic ideologies and stigmas. Luckily, I have strong friendships and have thrown myself into clubs, leadership roles like being the secretary of the BSU in high school and being involved on the Oregon campus currently. As support and found acceptance, belonging are important protective factors, which I have found through throwing myself into these social factors on campus and throughout school. While my relationship with my parents is complex in the sense of me being in the closet with them, yet out as a queer woman to my friends and on campus is difficult, as I feel limited in my self-exploration. However, this is an ongoing journey, and I actively combat oppressive barriers I face by reconstructing my perspective and compliance to the patriarchy, capitalism, and white supremacy. Whilst I may fall short in some instances, I get back up and continue to persevere to make the change I want to see, similar to how Sean does throughout his memoir. The ecological model in the classes taught me that issues that typically are brushed off as not that deep and personal or moral failings are indeed that deep and linked to larger systemic and cultural issues of inequality and highlight the growth of dominant parties and oppression of others. This is why self-reflection, education, and empathy are crucial to keeping harmful cycles broken.